switch gears to the NBA. Now there was a big trade that happened, obviously, the NBA trade deadline. Multiple big trades, actually, but the biggest one was obviously Kevin Durant going from the Brooklyn Nets to the Phoenix Suns, and obviously before that, Kyrie Irving was dealt to the Dallas Mavericks. I had said on multiple occasions, if I was Brooklyn this year, I understand the fact that it was possible Kyrie may not have been able to come back. Kyrie was about to wait for free agency. But I had said if I was Brooklyn, I would have tried to keep KD and Kyrie together for one more year. They were playing well together, and I don't like it, especially in the NBA, when guys decide with 4 years left on their contract, they essentially want out after 6 months. I think it's wrong, and I think that the team, you have a top 5 player in the world in Kevin Durant. I would have kept him. Nonetheless, Phoenix now is in this position. And, with everything going on with the John Moran situation in Memphis, with Denver and Jokic and their postseason history, I don't necessarily trust them. Clippers and everything going on since they got Russell Westbrook, looks like their chemistry is going down. To me, the two favorites in the West should be Phoenix and I think Golden State. Now that Curry's getting back and their veteran team is getting back, and I think it's really down to those two, and I think it depends on who's healthier. And actually, they could end up meeting in the first round.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and switch it up here because
Okay.
I think I don't discredit the Suns or the Warriors. Those are two good teams. I'll sit here and tell you right now, I don't think the Suns are going to the finals. I think the Suns made this team too late, and I don't think that they're going to get it done. I just don't think they're going to get it done in the postseason. The two teams that I like in the West right now. Number one, the Denver Nuggets. The Denver Nuggets have been the most complete team in the West all year long. Nikola Jokic is playing out of his mind. He'll probably win the MVP this year. And a couple years ago when they drafted Michael Porter Jr., the league was kind of saying, hey, if Michael Porter Jr. is healthy and this team can stay healthy, they could be a problem for years. Yeah. And I really like how Jamal Murray's back and he's healthy. Michael Porter Jr., he's healthy. Nikola Jokic, he's healthy. They've got enough weapons, I feel like, as role players to where they are winning games, and Mike Malone is coaching the team well. They have Aaron Gordon. Let's not forget that. Contavious Caldwell-Pope. He can shoot the ball too. And Bruce Brown Jr. has been playing good for them as well. They had to ship out Bones Highland because he wasn't getting minutes, and I get that. And he's on the Clippers now, and they're 8th in the West. But the Denver Nuggets, I really don't understand why the media isn't talking about them enough, considering that they are the best team in the West. They play like the best team in the West all year long, and they're just not getting enough respect. So right there, I'm going to go ahead and say the Denver Nuggets, in my book right now, are going to win the West. There's also one other team that I know a lot of people probably don't feel the same way about, but I do. I think that they can make a legitimate run at the title. Despite it all, I think the Sacramento Kings are one of the best offensive teams in the league.
Okay.
And I know that defensively they're not where they need to be.
Yeah.
But they can outshoot any team on any given night. Mike Brown has got that offense to where they can play. And I know it's their first year being this high up in the standings, and they don't have the experience of the playoffs. But I look at De'Aaron Fox, and he's had a great year. Domantas Sabonis is kind of becoming like Sacramento's version of Nikola Jokic. And if Harrison Barnes can stay consistently good on the offensive end, there's another player that you have. I just feel like the Kings are playing amazing team basketball, and it could be a one-year wonder thing. I don't know. This very well could fold over next year, and they could be back down in the 8 or 9 seed. But I think as of right now, and I get that the Sacramento Kings are not going to get this respect. I truly think that the Sacramento Kings, if their offense can will them to getting past the first round opponent, then it's up to the other team's defense at that point. And as of right now, they would play Minnesota. And I'm not going to look up how both of those teams have played this year, but those are two high octane offenses who can score.
I would probably take Sacramento in that situation. But I will say this, and I understand what you're saying on both sides, but I always think of the NBA playoffs as the regular season is so different than the postseason. The postseason is a 7 game series, and I think really it comes down to veteran leadership and being there and experience. Because we've seen great regular season teams that have 60 or 65 wins, and they get bounced in the first or second round all the time. I understand what you're saying in regards to Denver. I get it. They have been the number one seed all year long in the West. Nikola Jokic is probably going to win his third straight MVP. Over the last 2 years, I personally didn't think he deserved the MVP. I think out of all the MVP awards he's going to get, this is the one he probably deserves the most. Um, with that being said, though, I haven't seen him be that guy for a long time in a 7 game playoff series, and I don't trust that Jamal Murray and Porter, for that matter, for the duration of a series, can be that supporting cast that he needs. I think that they get past round one, but I think if they do play a Golden State or a Phoenix in round two, I think that both of those teams would knock out Denver.
And I get that, but I also look at the playoff history for Denver in the past. They made the Western Conference Finals in the bubble. Now, albeit it's the bubble, but still they made the Western Conference Finals. Then they went to the second round against the Blazers in that playoff series. I think that was the year later or the year before, but they made it this.
I believe that was the year after, I believe, or it could have been the year before. You're right.
Because
I'm trying to
you know what?
recall.
I think it was the year before because the Blazers played the Warriors and then the Warriors ended up winning it all.
Correct.
Yeah, so that was the year
No,
before.
the year before Golden State went. They lost to
Oh, I'm
Toronto
sorry.
because
Yeah, they lost to Toronto.
Durant got hurt. Remember, he came back. He had the ACL injury. Came back in Game 5. The year after was Phoenix, and then Phoenix Western Conference Finals. They played the Clippers. I don't remember. Denver got knocked out before then. Um, I but I think we both agree on Memphis. There's a lot of things going on right now in Memphis. We don't know what John Morant's situation is going to be, and regardless of what happened before all this came out about John Morant and the things happening, I said about Memphis, I really like them. I think they got a lot of depth, and I think John Morant still is one of the top 3 watches in today's NBA. But I think they're just too young and possibly a piece away.
Yeah, I think before all this stuff that was coming out about John Morant, I honestly thought that they were going to be a Western Conference Finals team. I don't know
Okay.
about going to the finals,
Yeah.
but I think with how Taylor Jenkins has run that team now for the past couple years, that they have shown vast improvement. When they played the Utah Jazz 2 years ago, they were able to fight and show some will, but ultimately the Jazz were just the better team. And then we all know what happened to the Jazz after that. They fizzled out. They're probably not even going to make the playoffs this year. And that's another story
After
again
that
for another
crazy
day.
hot start that they had.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I felt like the Jazz weren't going to do anything in that playoffs anyway. Then you have last year where they go and play a hard 7 game series against a team that matched up with them really well in the Minnesota Timberwolves. And at the end of the day, the Minnesota Timberwolves just could not stop the Grizzlies.
Yeah.
And I think last year in particular, the Grizzlies, I think they were good enough to beat Golden State. The only reason why I didn't think that they were going to beat Golden State or when that series was going on, I was a little skeptical about them maybe moving on, was because are you going to have a chance to beat a team like Golden State with John Morant hurt, and
No.
not playing 100%? Probably not. So it sucks that they lost in 6, but it is what it is. I thought how they were playing this year, it almost warranted them for me that they were going to be a Western Conference Final team. Now looking back on it, they're definitely going to make the playoffs, but man, have they fell down a bunch of pegs. And John Morant's probably not going to play the rest of the year. He's probably done. Let's call it how it
Yeah.
is. But I think what they're standing right now at 2, man, I could see them falling to as low as 5 or 6 if they can't keep winning games. And they're 5.5 games ahead of the 6th spot. They're 5 games ahead of the 5 spot, and they're only a half game out now of the 3rd seed. So I don't know. I really think Memphis can do something if John Morant gets his head right and comes back.
Yeah.
Then he could do something and maybe can propel that team because they're great at home, but on the road they are one of the worst teams in the NBA.
Um,
So I don't
Yeah,
know what to see, but I think as of now, Denver's going to win the West. I think they just play better team basketball. That's ultimately what's going to get it done in the West.
speaking of a team that is great at home but not very good on the road, I'm going to ask you about the Eastern Conference in a different way. Obviously, we know the top three teams of the East: Milwaukee, Boston, Philly. But man, I got to tell you what, our Cleveland Cavaliers. Um, I'm going to be honest with you. I try to love this team, and there is a scenario where I could normally see if the Cavs get hot and they play good basketball. They could give anybody in the East a challenge on a 7 game series, and they could make a deep playoff run. There's also a scenario where this team just is so frustrating to watch. They're not consistent. They don't have a bench at all. The bench pretty much, non-existent. The Donovan Mitchell trade was great. Mitchell was special, just like he was last night. Time of this recording against Boston, and that great comeback win they had. But they don't usually play well for all 4 quarters. They're more Garland and Mitchell reliant than I thought they would be when the trade happened. And I don't know. It feels like this team, even though they're 15 games above 500 at 41 wins right now, the Cavs to me feel like they should have at least 46, 47 wins. And that's where the frustrating part is for me.
Yeah, this team on the road is anemic, and it's frustrating to watch. I do agree with you with that. When this team is on the road, they look like a completely different team, and I just don't understand it. But when they're at home, they look like they're the most unstoppable team in the league. Maybe that's just been the trend for this year, though, because I feel
And
like everybody plays great at home, but then on the road, as I look at some of these other road records, like it's just not impressive to me. But when I also look at the East, out of the top 6 teams in the East right now, the Cavs have the worst road record at 13 and 19. And again, you have to win games in the road. When I look at the season for the Cavs as a whole right now, I said before the season, top 6 seed, and that's still my expectation. Just make it to the top 6. You go on from there. Just don't go in the play-in because you used the play-in as a stepping stone last year. This year, they're definitely going to be a top 6 seed. I don't see them crumbling or falling out. They have enough pieces on the team now where I think they can stably hold the top 6 spot. The question is, are they going to hold the top 4 spot? And I think at the season's end, that they are going to be a top 4 team. I think that they'll do enough given how their schedule looks the rest of the year when you have
I
back-to-back
agree.
series against Orlando,
No,
the
Brooklyn,
Hornets, the
Charlotte.
Heat,
Yep.
yep, and the Nets. Those are, in my opinion, you should probably go 5-3, maybe 6-2. I think there's going to be one game against Miami where they just fumble it, and then
Probably.
I also think that maybe they could fumble a silly game like Orlando because Orlando's playing
Uh,
better.
on the road, especially too, and we talked about the
Yeah,
road struggle, and even at home this year, like early in the year. I know Orlando's tanking now, obviously, but they gave the Cavs some problems early in the year, even though the Cavs won those games. They were closer games than they appeared. I I guess I'm just frustrated because I feel like, again, I feel like the Cavs have 4 dudes. They have Mobley, they have Allen, they have Mitchell, they have Garland. I really thought they could have used a trade deadline. I understand Isaac Okoro is playing better, but Isaac Okoro drives me nuts. Some nights it looks like he can shoot the three. Other nights it looks like he really doesn't belong on an offensive court in the NBA. Karis LeVert is, inconsistent. He can score you 20 some nights and 2 other nights. I really thought looking at, not to say that the East is weak because it's not, but certainly the weaker of the conference in terms of depth, I would say, because there's only a couple of teams in your way. I thought, maybe you use Levert and a Coro and you go package it up and you try to get a legitimate wing, because the Cavs don't have one. But if they get a good matchup like the Knicks in round one, I think that they can win it. But in a 7 game series, I don't see it beating Milwaukee, Boston, or Philly.
oh man, I guess that's where I'm going to probably disagree with you.
Okay.
With the Cavs, I do agree with you that they should have made a move at the deadline. I was preaching for the longest time. Ship out Karis LeVert. You should have already done it in the offseason. You clearly still have faith in him. Get him out of here so we can get a guy who can actually be a consistent wing player. They should have already shipped out Chetty Osman, in my opinion, by now, but they
For
want to
sure.
keep on to him because they want to hold on to him because they still think he can be good, but they don't acknowledge that he is a roller coaster probably 75% of the time.
I
he's
don't
on the
get it.
court in terms of
The
offense.
the whole Cavs bench is literally a roller coaster.
And that was the risk that the Cavs ran when they traded away all those players like Sexton and Lauri Markkanen and Agbaji for Donovan Mitchell. Now, I'm not
Yeah.
saying I wouldn't do that deal again.
No, I would
Like
absolutely
no,
do it
do
again.
the deal. Like let's get that clear.
Uh,
But that's the risk you ran, was giving up
yeah.
some depth. And I think for the Cavaliers, how I see it, and this is where we disagree. If they play the scorching hot Knicks right now, who continue to play like this towards the end of the season, I legitimately believe that the New York Knicks could beat them in a 7-game series.
Okay.
I think it would go 7 or 6 games because I already look at the examples set earlier this year. This team could not beat New York on the road. They beat them
No,
at home,
they
but
went to MSG and I think they only put up 80 points or something like that. It was god awful.
yeah, they couldn't beat them in New York, and you're going to have to win a game or two in New York to win the series. But they beat them at home earlier this year, and they have one more matchup with them, I believe, on March 30th. So I'm going to be interested to see how they do then. But regardless, I think the Knicks could give some problems. Now, the Brooklyn Nets are interesting. If you draw them in the first round, I don't think they will. I think Brooklyn's kind of fallen down a little
I
more.
agree.
If you draw the Brooklyn Nets, I think that's a quick 4 or 5 game series.
Yeah.
However, with the whole Kevin Durant and Kyrie deal, I'm going to give props to Joe Tsai because I think getting Mikal Bridges is huge. I'm a firm believer that Mikal Bridges can become the next superstar in this league.
That's
I think
interesting.
Phoenix was holding him back. We have seen what he can do outside the 3-point line. We've seen his offensive game go up since he's been in Brooklyn. I think a full offseason with Brooklyn, given Jacques Vaughn's good coaching methods that he's implemented this year after Steve Nash has been fired and sent to the abyss, I think Mikal Bridges can be the guy. And maybe he can be a 1B, but he is him. And I've seen enough from him to where I think Brooklyn did a very well job in getting rid of Kevin Durant, where you probably had 2 or 3 more years of him, for a guy like Mikal Bridges who's still young, and you could get him for years to come and maybe get him another player who can really help out. I also like the Cameron Johnson acquisition as well. He's a great role player. So I think Brooklyn, not now, they're playing the long game here, and I think it's a good move. They're going to be dirty in about a year or two, so give it time. I ultimately believe they're going to end up playing the Knicks in the first round. The Cavs
Okay.
will. And I think that will be a 7-game series. That if the Knicks are playing the way they do now, I don't see how that isn't a 7-game series. Maybe 5, but I just don't think it's going to be 6 because I don't trust this team on the road. So
Yeah.
that's where I say. And
It's
then I'll kind
fair.
of
I was going to ask.
yeah, go ahead, Brandon.
Just your thoughts on who do you think is going to make it out of the East?
I think I'll gauge back to the Cavs, and then here's what I'll say.
Okay.
So with the Cavaliers, I was going to finish this thought. I think their ceiling's the second round.
Okay.
I think the second round's the highest they can go. I think there is a chance where they can win a second round series, but who would be your best option to win a second round series against? I would probably lean off of Boston. And I say
I agree.
I think Boston because look at what you've done to them this year.
Yep.
You've took them to overtime 3 times. They are notorious this year in blowing these leads that they shouldn't.
Yeah.
And Boston, that's been their downfall. They've been
Yeah.
blowing leads. So I know a lot of people will say probably, oh, Milwaukee or
No.
Philadelphia. No, Boston's the team you probably want to play in the second round. And if you want to play Boston, you're probably going to have to play them as a 3 seed unless they somehow go back to the 1 seed and you play Milwaukee. I wouldn't have a problem playing Milwaukee either because we play them really well at home. We just can't beat them in Pfizer Forum.
I think if Chris Middleton gets back, because I said this about Boston last year. I think the only reason why they beat Milwaukee last year is because Middleton was hurt.
Yeah.
I think if Middleton, Giannis, and Holiday are all healthy, Milwaukee should be the Eastern Conference representative in the finals, I believe.
I think this year, despite what I may say about the Cavs, I do have the Bucks making it out of the East. Giannis is the best player in the world. I have been vocal about that for about the past couple years now, and everyone in Northeast Ohio calls me a crazed man, but you have to look at it how it is. If LeBron was still the best player in the world, then he would be getting the Lakers outside of the first round or he would be getting them to the playoffs. It just hasn't been happening. So give me the Bucks out of the East. They'll probably play Boston in the ECF, but I do think if the Cavs can make it to the second round and you have to draw Boston, that's a 7-game
Yeah.
series. I don't see how it isn't. I had my doubts about this team beating Boston, but they've already won 3 times against them this year, so I could see it being a 7-game series. So in the East, I would say Milwaukee. In the West, I'm going to say Denver. To win it all, because I imagine that's the next question. Who's going to win it all now?
Well, I wasn't going to necessarily ask you that, but if you want to go ahead and make your bonus prediction, so you got Milwaukee and Denver.
Mm-hmm. I have Milwaukee and Denver, and here's how I think of it right now. I think Giannis is going to cancel out Jokic.
Okay.
Let's get that out of the way. Drew Holiday and Jamal Murray. I think Drew Holiday does enough on defense
Okay.
to
That's
X out
fair.
Jamal Murray.
That's
So
absolutely
then
fair.
it comes down to Chris Middleton
Versus Porter, pretty
and
much.
against Porter Jr. And this is probably where, as of right now, I'm probably taking Porter Jr. because I think
Okay.
Porter Jr. obviously he's healthier and he's playing better. But if Middleton could get back to where he was, then
Yeah. If he
all
can
you
get
have
back,
to be is essentially a third option because Drew Holiday has taken some strides on
yeah.
offense this year. I think in the end the Bucks are going to win it all. I think they just have the better bench.
If Middleton is anywhere close to his 2021 finals, because he had a really good 2021 finals to piggyback off Giannis, I absolutely think Milwaukee is probably the team to beat. I agree.
Yeah, I think Milwaukee's going to win it all. That's just how it is. I think that they're clearly the best team in the league. I think Giannis is going to start racking up some rings now, and he's going to prove that he could be a top 5 player of all time moving forward. I could see Giannis ending with 4 or 5 rings to end his career. That's just how it is. He's already got the one. He knows how to win. He's been in the situations before. Arguably, I like what you said earlier. I think that they would have been the representatives of the East. And oh man, do they beat the Warriors?
Yeah, I was
don't
thinking
know
about
if they
that.
beat the Warriors.
I don't know either, but listen, as great as Golden State was last year, and they were a great team last year, I think Giannis might have gave them some problems.
It's a matchup nightmare for them.
That Boston did not present. I didn't take Boston series. I thought Golden State was going to win that series. I was surprised it took 6. I picked Golden State in 6, but I thought there was a chance it could go 5. Yeah, Giannis is a matchup nightmare. As you mentioned, the Cavs have the bigs and the bodies to deal with him, but they ultimately, I don't think, would survive a 7-game series. But the interesting thing, right, is out of all these teams, the Cavs might be one of the best teams to go up against Milwaukee matchup-wise and deal with Giannis. So I don't know. It's a very interesting postseason. I think we have our favorites, but I'm just glad that in the NBA now, it's not, it's Cavs, Golden State, or Houston, or whoever. There's actually a reason to watch these playoffs.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. With that take, I just think with the variety now that we have in the East, and the West is just as big of a mess, but competitively a mess as it can be. Anyone can win it this year. I think this is the one year out of it, like in a while, where I don't think there's a clear-cut winner. It's been pretty competitive for most of the year. I mean, a lot of people are going to be saying Boston, but to the people that are saying Boston are going to probably be the people that think Milwaukee. I just think if there's one team in the East that I know for a fact, even though they're in the top 4, that they're not going to win, I think Philadelphia. I think Philadelphia's just they're such a
prove it to me. If Harden has the best playoff series of his life, and I mean, if he has one great playoff run, obviously I think you're going to get enough production from Embiid. I think Maxi's a great 2. If Harden turns back into Houston James Harden, and by that I mean regular season James Harden, not postseason James Harden, Philly has a small chance. But as we just mentioned, you have to get production out of all 3 stars, and nobody I know trusts Philly.
Yeah, I don't trust Philly for a second, and my big reason of why I don't trust Philly is look at their head coach. Doc Rivers is not a good coach.
You know what?
Doc Rivers had one finals run. That's it.
No, that's it.
He doesn't
he
make
is a complete show artist.